Greetings Terrarians, Khaios here. The time has finally come to finish up the boss-themed houses series. If you are new to the channel or just haven't seen the previous two videos yet, I will leave a link to them in the description below. If you like what you see, please consider subscribing to the channel. We are well on track to hit 50,000 subscribers by the end of the year, so please consider helping the channel reach that goal. Last time we left off by building the Terraria house. Up next is the Golem. Since I had just completed this build within the jungle, and the desert doesn't have much love in terms of bosses, I thought it might be fun to actually do the Golem build within the desert. So what I have here is a archaeological dig for the Golem house in the desert. So I imagined that the jungle once housed the jungle temple, obviously. But over time, the desert kind of blew its way in and destroyed the jungle. And then even more time passed and people found the ruins of the temple and started to do an archaeological dig site or an excavation at it. So that's kind of what I'm going for here. I'm sorry for the green tint. It's because I used the temple, the lizard brick, down for the temple. And so it's kind of got a greenish tint to this desert, but I think it fits overall. When it came time to build the Golem portion of the boss-themed house, because all of the other boss-themed houses have had something in relation to the boss that they are related to. I tried building it with lizard bricks, but it got rather dull just using one kind of brick, and I could not find a paint and block combination to actually get this nice color that all of the lizard furniture and bricks use. So it made it really difficult to make the Golem itself, until I discovered that a piece of particular furniture, or rather a decoration piece, for the temple looks suspiciously like the Golem head. And so I kind of MacGyvered together some ruined Golem fragments right here in the center of the build. And as you can see here, I did this by going into T-Edit and copy and pasting segments of different pieces of furniture and different pieces of decoration together to get this makeshift Golem design. And then there were some gaps behind it, so I threw some walls in the background to hide those gaps. So this piece here just kind of looks like it's a smashed Golem head in general. You can see the eyes and you can see the nose, and it kind of has the fan things that the Golem head has. So I do think that this is supposed to be debris of another smashed Golem. So I think using that as the focal point for the head fits. And then obviously the rest of the body would be buried somewhere underground within the sand. And I'm making it look like they're kind of digging their way through. Maybe the temple crumbled and that's how they found it in the first place and collapsed, and they found this sinkhole with sand and started digging it out. They haven't dug out all the way over here, which is why the temple kind of just trails off into the sand. But this place is a valid NPC house. Instead of doing what I did with the mechanics house over at Skeleton Prime and having the NPC house be in one of these scaffolding bits, I wanted to put it within the temple itself. So that way when an NPC moves in, it makes it look like they're going through the ruins and kind of doing the excavation. So this is a valid NPC house. And then for the artifacts underneath the two tents, for the most part it's just furniture pieces, as you can see here, but we do have a pot right here on the table. And I had to place that using T-Edit. There's no other way to obtain and place these without the use of mods. And I don't want this to be a modded world so that you all can play and enjoy the map for yourself. Oh, by the way, there will be a link to the download for this map in the description below. And then, as with all of the other boss-themed houses, I have the Golem mask on a mannequin. Once I've beaten the Golem, my next boss is usually Duke Fishron. So here we are at the ocean, and I'm going to be doing something a little bit different this time. I thought about different things that I might want to do with this build, But then I thought it might be kind of funny to have Duke Fishron look like he's been caught in a fishing expedition. And additionally, since it's October, I thought it might be fun to reference Jaws in this as well, except this time they were successful. So I built a fishing boat that's very similar to the one that you see in Jaws, and I went ahead and built a makeshift Duke Fishron that's been caught and who's being hauled back to the shore. So really, this is different than anything else I normally do. When I build ships, they're usually just pontoons or sail ships or something. I've never done anything more of a modern era. But for the most part, this build is made out of boreal wood, which is a material I don't work with a whole lot. The deep red bits here are silly balloon walls, just because they gave a nice vibrant color to them. And the barrels are obviously barrels, painted yellow. I tried to keep the details as similar to the ship from Jaws or the boat from Jaws as I could. So that's why we've got the really tall mast here, we've got the crane in the back. They did have a shark diving cage, which is what I've got going on here. But obviously they'd never caught Jaws in that movie, but this time we actually catch our shark. Or pig? Shark? Pig? I don't know. Anywho, there's not a whole lot to this build in terms of dissecting the materials, I suppose. It's pretty straightforward. We have shade wood for the vertical beams, rich mahogany for the horizontal beams. This bit of rope here, as well as this bit of rope over here, are actually just rich mahogany wood. Living rich mahogany wood painted brown and actuated, because it looks more like rope than, I guess, having rope segments go in a zigzag pattern all of the way down, because you can't hammer rope itself. I did consider not actuating it so it matched this rope in color a little bit more, but then you wouldn't be able to actually get into the ship without having to climb all of the way up this mast and then jumping all of the way back down. The next boss on the list is the Lunatic Cultist. Now, since he looks like he would fit the medieval theme very well, I wanted to build something within that theme. So we have here a nice looking medieval styled library. And yeah, I'm really happy with this build. Over here on the left-hand side here for the sign for the library, it's actually just a trophy from the old one's army arena. And then for the bookshelves, I actually do prefer just the standard wooden bookshelves, especially for this kind of build. The other ones can be a little too fancy, and I would like to paint them without painting the books, and it gets a little weird. So I tend to just use this bookshelf for libraries. And there's not a whole lot to this build. Except there is. Okay, so this is just a ruse for the cult. The cult actually gathers beneath the library, and they go in through this makeshift fireplace. There's a hidden switch right here in the shadows, and we click it, and we are taken underground to the shrine where the cultists have gathered. And here we have a little bit more giant stone books where they could read off their chants, the rituals going on, to kind of hide the area while you're up above. As you can see up here, the campfire is now off. When you click the switch, the campfire turns off and these lights all turn on. And then when you go back up, the opposite happens. And here in the center of it all, we have a stone Cthulhu head, or a Moonlord head, and they're kind of just doing their cultist things. Speaking of the Moonlord, last but certainly not least, we have said boss. So this time I wanted to do something that I've never really done before, but I've always been interested in, and that is kind of making a Lovecraftian inspired build. Because the Moonlord is obviously inspired by Cthulhu, who is a character within Lovecraftian lore. So I wanted to make a very chaotic floating island with a bunch of randomness to it. And I used a bunch of green dungeon brick in here and a bunch of gray painted plating, and I wanted to make sure that there was no symmetry to this build for the most part. We have a return of the Moonlord's head here in the center of this giant glass window, and I wanted to give it a kind of fractured looking frame with all of this plating that's been actuated so we could still walk in front of it and just make it look really chaotic. And I did the same with all of the windows in all of these NPC houses over here. This one's not valid, but the other two are. And the thing about these green dungeon doors, I really think it actually fits the whole Moonlord thing. It's not exactly a Moonlord head, but it's pretty similar, and I do like the way that it looks. And then when we use these monoliths over here, it actually does bring the entire build together. The green looks good, the gray looks good, but we flick these on and it just brings it down to the color tones that the Moonlord uses, and it just looks fantastic. As for the floating island itself, I have little bits of gray painted jungle grass with some jungle spores on top of them to give a pulsating greenish light. And I wanted to have this not one solid block, but a bunch of webbing looking rocks to imitate what we have going on within the windows over here. And then a spiral staircase outside because it's a little funky, and a bookshelf on top of that because it's also a little weird. And I just wanted this build to be a little weird. And that's going to do it for the rest of the boss-themed houses series. If you would like to see me take on event-themed houses, please let me know in the comments. And if you liked this video, please consider leaving a like and subscribing. It really helps the channel out. If you'd like to check out the builds in-game for yourself, there is a download link in the description below. Please note, this is built on PC in version 1.3.5, so it is not currently playable for mobile. Thank you all very much for watching. I'll catch you all later. Happy building.